Hey guys, it's Drac, and we are in the middle of the Student Center at Georgia Tech right now, and we are making this video because you asked me to make this video. So this is a deck tech of the standard deck that I'm playing right now. It is my Esper control list that I'm using for like F&M and just kind of goofing around, but more importantly it is the standard portion of, I guess, my decks that took me to my third place finish in Indianapolis. So a lot of people were curious what deck I played in the standard portion, and I play blue-black whenever I can in just about every format, which is weird because it's my favorite guild. But I wanted to do a rundown of my deck and how the deck works because a lot of people were curious about some of my card choices. So the most important thing about Esper is the mana base, and it's one of the things that makes Esper really strong right now. So to start off with, we are running 4 Temple of Deceit and 4 Temple of Silence. Now a lot of people disagree with the slow mana, but they generate very real card advantage with the scry, and that's exactly what you want to do in a slow, grindy control deck like this. On top of that, I'm running all 12 Shocklands. That's 4 Hallowed, 4 Godless, 4 Watery Grave. And I'm running those because you want perfect mana. There are a lot of things in this deck that are really mana intensive, and because of that, I find that it's really, really important to have access to as many of your colors, because you want to be able to dissolve on turn 3 and Supreme Verdict on turn 4, and you still want to like have access to playing Jace whenever you... It's really, really important to have diversity in your mana base, especially in the late game when you want to cast something like 3 Heroes Downfalls in a turn. I'm also running some basics. I'm running 2 plains and 4 islands. I'm running these primarily because I really like these lands, but I'm running them mechanically because they make sense in the deck. They protect you a little bit from Burning Earth, which isn't a real driving force, otherwise we'd be running more basics, but they protect you from like taking damage for your Supreme Verdict, which against like really aggressive decks, what you want to do is you want to be able to go like turn 1 Temple Scry, turn 2 Hallowed tapped, or if you want to do turn 2 Azorius Charm, you want to not take damage for that. And then, like, the really important thing is that on your turn 4 when you're going to Verdict, you don't want to, like, shock yourself to put yourself at 3 and then you just die to a Lightning Strike off the top. So it's about, like, saving life where you can and keeping as strong a mana base as you can. So I feel like these are the important ratios in the deck. You want the 4 blue sources and the 2 white sources. So the mana base is really important. We're going to move on to the removal package. I have a Devour Flesh to deal with opposing Blood Barons, plus it's like their life total is irrelevant to me, so it's frequently very, very good as an early removal spell. That said, I do really like the selection that Hero's Downfall gives me and the play that it gives me against opposing Planeswalkers. I think that it's really good against the Monsters deck, which is running a ton of Planeswalkers right now, and I think it's really good against any deck that's attacking with creatures. It's particularly good against Nightveil Spectre, which is one thing that my ultimate prices do not. Now, the reason that there are no Doomblades in this list right now is because Mono Black Control is a very popular deck, and my deck for the Invitational was geared with that in mind. It is designed to kill Mono Black Control. It's a matchup that I'm actually very strong in because of these ultimate prices and the Devour Flesh and the Downfalls. I have the ability to interact with a lot of their threats, and the ultimate prices are effectively Doomblades because there aren't a lot of black creatures in the format that aren't mono-colored that you want to kill. So it doesn't really matter which one you choose, but I feel like ultimate price is much, much stronger. Far and away is just the most versatile removal spell. It's a built-in 2-for-1, and it has the advantage of saving your Blood Baron from Supreme Verdicts in the mirror, which is really, really good. Plus the sack effect is A, good against Blood Barons, and B, good against a lot of other decks. So I think that it's really, really sweet. It has some fun interactions against Pack Rat. Speaking of Pack Rat and other problem creatures like that, the removal package continues into multicolored with 4 Supreme Verdicts. There are too many aggressive decks running around between like Mono Blue Devotion and Mono Red that'll just truck you, and there's even a white weenie deck that's very, very fast. So 4 Supreme Verdicts is where you want to be. 3 Detention Sphere gives you an earlier play to remove kind of annoying permanents. It's not very good against Soldier of the Pantheon, but we have plenty of other things that are. So I really like Detention Sphere. It's again really good against Underworld Connections in that Mono Black matchup, which is otherwise really tough. Then I have 4 Azorius Charm, which time walk your opponents all the time, but they also like smooth out your draws, and occasionally against like really aggressive decks, I'll give Aetherling Lifelink and swing in with him unblockable to gain 8, and that's really strong. So it even has some play in the late game like that. I have 3 Sphinx's Revelations, which I think are really, really important because obviously they are the reason to play Esper Control. The card draw is frequently backbreaking, and if you do 1 for 3 and then follow it up with the Sphinx's Revelation for like 6 in a few turns, most opponents just scoop to that. It's too powerful for a lot of decks to deal with. The card advantage and the life gain are just devastating to any sort of mid-range strategy, and they just take aggro decks out of the game. So I think that Sphinx's Revelation is actually the most powerful card in the format right now. I think that nothing compares to it in Standard. So past that, I think that 3 Dissolve is where you want to be. It's a very powerful counterspell, and even though it's no substitution for Dissipate, I think that it's really, really good. Then I run 4 Jace Architect of Thought because frequently he takes the place of Divination in my deck, and you'll notice that there is no Divination in my deck, and that's because I think that Divination is a really bad card. Divination doesn't impact your board at all when you're on 3 mana, and you want to be impacting the board against just about any opponent, whether they're control or aggro, and frequently if you're doing nothing else with your mana, Divination forces you to discard one of your cards, so it's very frequently not card advantage, and it's also just a terrible card. A lot of people, including like some of the pros, think that Divination is really, really good because of the card advantage it generates, but I don't think that it generates card advantage. And in addition to that, like, I really like impacting the board, and I like the ability to hold up mana on turn 3 to represent things like Dissolve. I'll frequently shock to represent Dissolve and set my opponents back a turn that way. So like, I don't want to tap out for Divination, but these are my threats. I have 1 Elspeth main board, the Loneliest Aetherling, which the Draculina altered over at Peach alters, and then 1 Blood Baron. Blood Baron is good in a lot of matchups because he just locks people out. Aetherling is obviously the most efficient win condition in Standard, and then Elspeth both is a board sweep and does everything that you want to do in the deck in terms of like putting dudes onto the field, and then eventually your ultimate can take over the game. So that is our main board, and I'm going to kind of talk about my sideboard now and how it interfaces in various matchups. So first off, I have some Dirtily tokens. There's an emblem, Soldiers, that Elspeth makes, and there used to be a bird in the sideboard because I needed it for Swansong, but I don't run that right now. There's a random unhinged foil island in here because Star City was selling it super cheap in Indianapolis, and I haven't taken it out yet. So there's an Aetherling on my board which is exclusively for control mirrors. Then there are 2 Negates, which are good against a lot of things. They're good against the mid-range decks that run any sort of Rakdos return, and they're also really good against Mono Black because they deal with problem permanents like Whip of Erebos and Underworld Connections before they ever hit the table. They're not great, but they're pretty good. Gainsay is strictly for the mirror, and it's also pretty good against Mono Blue, so it gives you a little bit of versatility. I don't really like counterspells against Mono Blue. I really like cards that answer their strategy and just rip their advantage away from them. Speaking of which, Sin Collector is really good both in the mirror and against those mid-rangey decks that want to resolve like really powerful permanents. And Pithing Needle is in here for both the mirror, because like I can take out things that I don't think impact the game. Like I can take out my Elspeth and name that, or I can use it against their Ashiok, or I can use it against their Aetherling if they resolve one first. It does cripple me in the mirror, so I don't really like it in the mirror that often, but what it really does is it shuts down Mono Black hard, because it turns off a lot of their things' activated abilities, it can kill their Underworld connections, and it also stops their Ereboses. I also have 3 Thoughtseize in my board, which are good against both the mid-range decks, and they're excellent in the control mirror. I really enjoy them because they protect my Aetherling from opposing Thoughtseizes, which is really, really important. I have an extra Elspeth, which is a better win condition against certain matchups. I'll frequently turn Aetherling into Elspeth or one of my Jaces into Elspeth if I'm playing something that's like super duper aggressive and I want the ability to just pump out dudes. And then I have 2 more Blood Barons, which frequently just win the game against Mono Black if they don't have the Devour Flesh. But again, we have the Far and Aways to protect our own guys from the Devour Flesh, and then like more importantly than that, he's also really good in the mirror and really good against White Weenie, and he gains life, so he's a very efficient win condition for decks that we need more, I don't know what this is, need more win conditions against. So for those of you that were asking, I'll date this video so that it stays. This is a Flusterstorm. Okay, you got a Flusterstorm. I will date this video so that you guys understand that this is for the current Standard metagame right now. And as always, thanks for watching. This has been Esper Control.